Snow drifted across the western front like ash from a dead fire, settling on torn sandbags and the broken ribs of splintered trees. The war had quieted for the night, not with peace, but with the eerie stillness that only came after too much killing. In the ruins of an abandoned French farmhouse, Lieutenant Arlen Roche, a former schoolteacher turned reluctant soldier, sat hunched over a battered field desk. A single lantern glowed beside him, its flame trembling in the winter draft. Spread before him was a sheet of thin, water-stained paper, and on it, a code unlike any he had seen. Arlen wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't a spy, not a cryptographer, not even an officer who volunteered. But over 3 years of war, he had become the only man in his regiment who could read German with any real fluency. What had started as translating intercepted letters had quietly shifted into decoding scraps of intelligence. None of it had ever mattered much, until now. At least, that was what his commander believed. The paper had been found on the body of a fallen German courier during a midnight patrol. It was addressed not to a general, nor a field marshal, but to someone simply listed as Der Falkenpost. The Falkenpost. A code name no one recognized. Arlen narrowed his eyes. Most German field messages used the standard cipher wheels, predictable, rhythmic. But this was different. Letters repeated where they shouldn't. Empty spaces where numbers should be. An entire row of ink smeared like the writer had trembled while finishing it. Arlen rubbed his forehead, exhaustion drilling behind his eyes. Then he noticed something. A pattern. Not in the message itself, but in the mistakes. The smudges. The odd spacing. The repeated letters. Not errors, but markers. Arlen whispered to himself. It's not the words. It's what's missing. German ciphers at all. It was meant for the Allies. A hidden message. A warning. His chest tightened. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the distant rumble of artillery moving into position. British units. German units. All preparing for something large, something no one on his side seemed aware of. Arlen dipped his pen, scribbling furiously, tracing the silent rhythm of the courier's mistakes. A shape began forming from the gaps between letters, the spaces between symbols. A date. Then a location. Then 2 chilling words. Red flood. Arlen stared. His pulse hammered. Whatever red flood meant, it was set to happen in 4 days. Footsteps crunched outside the farmhouse. Arlen jolted upright, lantern swaying, shadows stretching across shattered walls. Someone was approaching. Slowly. Deliberately. A silhouette filled the doorway. Lieutenant Roche, the figure whispered. Put the papers away. Now. Arlen swallowed hard. It was Captain Merrick, the intelligence officer who rarely showed his face unless something was terribly wrong. Merrick closed the door behind him and spoke with a blunt edge that left no room for argument. You aren't supposed to have that message, Lieutenant. Arlen stiffened. Sir, I think I know what it means. Merrick stepped closer, lowering his voice. Oh, I know you do. That's why I'm here. He paused. And that's why you're leaving tonight. Arlen blinked. Leaving where? Merrick's expression tightened. To deliver the truth to headquarters yourself. You're the last man still alive who can read that code. A long silence filled the farmhouse. Then Merrick added. And if you fail, whatever red flood is, it won't just drown your regiment. It'll drown everyone. Through the frozen line ***. Snow hammered the windows as Arlen Roche stepped out of the ruined farmhouse into the bitter pre-dawn cold. His breath fogged into the darkness, disappearing into the same wind that carried the distant groans of artillery being dragged across frozen mud. Captain Merrick followed him, pulling his coat tight. There's a gap in the line to the east, Merrick said. A shell crater blown wide 2 nights ago. Our scouts think the Germans haven't patched it yet. Arlen frowned. Think? War doesn't give us certainties, Lieutenant. Only deadlines. Merrick reached into his coat and pulled out a small metal tube, a message cylinder polished to a dull silver. This, he said, pressing it into Arlen's palm, is the only copy of your translation. If command sees what you found, they'll know exactly what to do. If they don't. Arlen didn't need the end of that sentence. He slipped the cylinder into the inside pocket of his coat, the cold metal resting against his chest like a second heart. Merrick grabbed Arlen's shoulder. Stay low. Avoid patrols. And whatever you do, do not let anyone see that message, Allied or German. Arlen swallowed. Why not? Merrick looked away, jaw tight. Because whoever wrote this code isn't German High Command. There's someone inside, someone close to both sides. Someone dangerous enough that the Germans killed their own courier to keep this quiet. A chill that wasn't from the snow traced down Arlen's spine. Then Merrick pushed him toward the road. Go. Run. You have until dawn. The battlefield between the lines was a wasteland of churned mud, frozen corpses, and splintered wood. The moon hid behind thick clouds, leaving only the faint glow of artillery flashes to light the path. Arlen crawled on his stomach, keeping his rifle slung tight. Each movement sent icy mud seeping into his coat. He counted breaths, counted seconds, counted instincts. Halfway through the dead zone, he froze. Voices. German, 2 men. Close. Ist die jemand? Can you hear something? Arlen pressed himself flat into a crater, heart pounding in his ears. Bootsteps. Crunching snow. Getting closer. He reached slowly for his pistol, then stopped. A beam of a lantern swung over the ridge of the crater, light slicing across the fog. Arlen held his breath until his chest felt like it would burst. A second voice murmured, Wahrscheinlich ein Fuchs. Probably a fox. The lantern turned away. Arlen waited a full 30 seconds, then another, before crawling again, inch by inch until the voices faded. Only when he reached the half-collapsed fencing near the ridge of the British sector did he dare stand again. He was almost safe. Almost. The saboteur. 10 steps from the Allied listening post, Arlen heard a sound that made the hair rise on the back of his neck. A click. A footstep. Behind him. He turned slowly. A figure stood in the snow, not German, nor British. Their coat was stripped of insignia. Their face covered by a scarf. But their posture was practiced. Military. Deadly. And they aimed a pistol right at Arlen's chest. The figure spoke in perfect English, calm as winter ice. Lieutenant Roche. Hand me the message. Arlen's pulse thrashed. You're with the Germans? A spy. The figure shook their head slowly. I work for no flag. I work for balance. And you have something that will tip the scale too far. Their finger tightened on the trigger. Arlen's breath shook, but he didn't back away. Then you know what a red fludder means, he whispered. A long silence. Then, quietly. Yes. Arlen's blood chilled. What is it? The figure hesitated for just a second, a tiny second, but enough. Something that was never meant to happen. Suddenly a spotlight flared from behind Arlen, a British sentry shouting. Halt! Gunshots exploded into the night. Arlen dove into the snow as the mysterious figure sprinted into the darkness, disappearing into the smoke and chaos as fast as they had appeared. When the firing stopped, Arlen looked down. The message cylinder was still there. Warm now. Alive. He had made it through the line. But someone out there knew who he was and what he carried. And they weren't done hunting him. The whisper in the wires ***. Arlen didn't sleep for the next 24 hours. After delivering the message to Brigade Command, he was assigned to a quiet corner of the intelligence hut, but quiet was the last thing his mind allowed. He could still see the figure in no man's land, the way they held the pistol, the way they said balance like it was more important than any country, any uniform, any life. Whoever they were. They had known his name. And they had known about Red Flood. But Command didn't give him time to think. Lieutenant Roche, announced Major Halden, stepping into the hut. You're wanted in the wireless room. Immediately. Arlen stood, smoothing his uniform. What for, sir? Halden didn't answer. His jaw was set, his eyes tense. That wasn't good. The British wireless station was cramped, a narrow wooden shack humming with static and the crackle of distant transmissions. The air smelled of dust and overheated copper coils. Sergeant Vale sat at the table, headphones pressed to his ears, brow furrowed. Halden nodded to him. Tell the lieutenant what you told me. Vale swallowed hard. Sir, we picked up a signal this morning. Same code pattern as the message you translated. Same cipher markers. Arlen froze. Impossible, he whispered. That cipher is obsolete. Whoever used it, they died with it. Apparently not, Vale muttered. He pointed to a slip of paper filled with jagged markings. We caught only fragments. Faint. Broken. But enough to know it's the same network. Hal then turned to Arlen. And we want you to decode it. Arlen stared at the paper. He knew every inch of that cipher pattern. He'd spent nights breaking it open, reconstructing it from scraps. And yet seeing it again, days later, from an unknown transmitter. His stomach twisted. He sat, pen in hand, mind racing as he matched symbols, letters, and hidden substitutions. But halfway through, his hand stopped. The message wasn't a plan. Wasn't coordinates. Wasn't an order. It was a warning. Or a threat. Or both. Arlen reread it twice before speaking. It says, Messenger compromised. Terminate courier. Recover the key. The room went dead silent. Halden's voice dropped to a whisper. Courier. That's you, Lieutenant. Arlen felt the blood drain from his face. Whoever had sent the signal. They knew exactly where he was. They knew what he carried. And they still wanted him dead. That night, Arlen was assigned guard protection, 2 soldiers at all times, but even that didn't comfort him. Not after the decoded threat. Just after midnight, snow began to fall again, a silent blanket settling over the trenches. Arlen stepped outside to clear his head. The moon shone weakly through drifting flakes, casting a ghost-like glow on the camp. He rubbed his eyes. Then he froze. A figure stood by the ruined fence, still, quiet, the same dark coat and scarf as before. A silhouette carved from shadow. The saboteur. Arlen's breath hitched. How the hell did you get in here? He whispered. The figure tilted their head. You assume gates and guards keep people out, they said softly. War doesn't work like that. Borders blur. Loyalties bleed. Arlen didn't reach for his pistol. He knew the saboteur would be faster. What is Red Flood? Arlen demanded. Apparently not, Vale muttered. He pointed to a slip of paper filled with jagged markings. We caught only fragments. Faint. Broken. But enough to know it's the same network. Hal then turned to Arlen. And we want you to decode it. Arlen stared at the paper. He knew every inch of that cipher pattern. He'd spent nights breaking it open, reconstructing it from scraps. And yet seeing it again, days later, from an unknown transmitter. His stomach twisted. He sat, pen in hand, mind racing as he matched symbols, letters, and hidden substitutions. But halfway through, his hand stopped. The message wasn't a plan. Wasn't coordinates. Wasn't an order. It was a warning. Or a threat. Or both. Arlen reread it twice before speaking. It says, Messenger compromised. Terminate courier. Recover the key. The room went dead silent. Halden's voice dropped to a whisper. Courier. That's you, Lieutenant. Arlen felt the blood drain from his face. Whoever had sent the signal. They knew exactly where he was. They knew what he carried. And they still wanted him dead. That night, Arlen was assigned guard protection, 2 soldiers at all times, but even that didn't comfort him. Not after the decoded threat. Just after midnight, snow began to fall again, a silent blanket settling over the trenches. Arlen stepped outside to clear his head. The moon shone weakly through drifting flakes, casting a ghost-like glow on the camp. He rubbed his eyes. Then he froze. A figure stood by the ruined fence, still, quiet, the same dark coat and scarf as before. A silhouette carved from shadow. The saboteur. Arlen's breath hitched. How the hell did you get in here? He whispered. The figure tilted their head. You assume gates and guards keep people out, they said softly. War doesn't work like that. Borders blur. Loyalties bleed. Arlen didn't reach for his pistol. He knew the saboteur would be faster. What is Red Flood? Arlen demanded. The figure exhaled, visible in the cold air. Something you should not deliver. Something your command does not understand. Explain it. I can't. You mean you won't? The saboteur stepped closer, boots crunching in the snow. Lieutenant Roche. I spared your life once. Their eyes, only their eyes visible, were unwavering. I won't get a third chance. Arlen's throat tightened. Why warn me at all? Because you are not the one I want dead. The wind howled through broken timber. The figure turned, fading into the night. Arlen reached out. Wait, who are you? A long pause. Then, without looking back. Someone trying to stop a war greater than this one. And they were gone. Arlen stumbled backward into the trench, heart racing. Snowflakes clung to his eyelashes. Every instinct screamed danger, but another part of him, the part that had survived battles, decoded secrets, outlasted nights of shellfire, told him something else. This wasn't just about the message. It was about the truth behind it. A truth no one wanted out. He sprinted toward the officer's bunker, throwing the door open. Major Halden, we need to move the message. Now. Halden looked up sharply. Why? Because someone inside our lines is working against us. Someone high enough to send coded transmissions. Someone who knows I'm the courier. Halden stood. Then God help us. Because that means. A massive explosion shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. A siren wailed outside. A soldier burst in, gasping. Major! The wireless hut, it's been blown up. Arlen's heart plummeted. The saboteur wasn't warning him to be kind. They were eliminating evidence, and everyone who could decode it. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was a hunt. And Arlen Roche was the final target. The signal that never should have been sent ****. The wireless hut burned through the night. Flames clawed at the sky like desperate fingers, sparks drifting upward and dying in the wind. Officers shouted, men hauled buckets of mud and snow, but the structure collapsed in on itself with a groan of splintered timber. Arlen stood there, paralyzed, as the last remnants of the hut, and the last physical evidence of the mysterious signal, vanished into smoke and ash. Major Halden approached slowly, face lit by orange firelight. Lieutenant, he said quietly. This wasn't random sabotage. No, Arlen whispered, throat tightening. It was aimed. Precise. They wanted the message erased. And the only one left who can decode it, Halden said, looking at him, is you. Arlen didn't reply. The truth was settling like snow on his shoulders. He wasn't a courier anymore. He was a liability. Halden escorted Arlen to the field bunker, sealing the door behind them. The room was dim, lit by a single oil lamp. A map was spread across the table, pinned with notes, strings, markers. 2 senior intelligence officers stood inside. Arlen recognized one of them, Colonel Vance, a stern, unreadable man who rarely showed emotion. Halden cleared his throat. Sit, Lieutenant. Arlen obeyed, though unease twisted in his gut. Vance stepped forward, hands behind his back. Lieutenant Roche, he began, you have served your country with distinction. Your dispatch work has saved entire battalions. But this, he tapped the burnt remains of the cipher slip Arlen had decoded earlier. This puts us in danger. Arlen frowned. So, you are now the only person alive who understands the full structure of the obsolete code. He leaned closer. And that makes you a target for every enemy agent in the region. Arlen's pulse quickened. And, Vance added, voice dropping lower, it makes you a threat to us as well. Halden stiffened. Colonel. Vance raised a hand. We cannot have a man walking around with knowledge of a network we don't control. If captured, Lieutenant Roche could compromise the entire Western Front. Arlen swallowed hard. What are you implying, sir? Vance met his eyes. You are to be relocated immediately. Deep behind friendly lines. Under guard. No communication with the front. No further access to intelligence. Arlen blinked slowly. It wasn't relocation. It was containment. A soft, polite prison. For how long? Arlen asked. Vance's answer was immediate. Indefinitely. Arlen's breath caught in his chest. That night, Arlen sat alone inside a locked transport wagon, the rumble of distant artillery echoing through the cold metal. 2 guards waited outside the door. He stared at his hands, shaking slightly. Indefinitely. He hadn't asked for this knowledge. He hadn't wanted to be part of a secret older than the war itself. But now it owned him. He leaned back against the cold wall, replaying the saboteur's words. "You are not the one I want dead. I won't get a third chance." Something your command does not understand. Something was coming. Something worse than being locked away. And if he let command bury him, he'd never know the truth. The wagon rattled to a stop. Outside, muffled voices. Footsteps. Arlen tensed. Then, a whisper at the door. "Lieutenant Roche." Arlen froze. "Who's there?" A tiny metallic click. The lock slid open. The door eased open just enough for a slim shadow to slip inside. Eyes glinting behind a scarf. The saboteur. "You need to move," they whispered urgently. "Now." Arlen stared. How did you?" "No time." The saboteur grabbed his arm. "You're being hidden away because they fear what you know. But there's more they're not telling you." Arlen steadied his voice. "What is Red Flood?" The saboteur's eyes flicked to the guards outside. And for the first time, their voice trembled. "It isn't a plan," they whispered. "It's a cover." Just one line. One sentence. His heart stopped as he read it. "The courier chooses his own end." Arlen looked up. The saboteurs stepped back, sadness in their eyes. "Whatever choice you make next," they whispered, "will decide whether this war ends clean or ends buried." Arlen closed the paper. Snow fell around them in a quiet shroud. He took a breath. And chose.